Log a letter to my son. Dear Marshall, as I grow older, experience more of life, and make new discoveries each day about the complexity and excitement of our human journey, I find it important to let you in on these discoveries and how they might impact you and your generation. As I write this letter, you are no longer under our roof. You are a grown man living in Los Angeles with dreams of leaving your mark in the world of television, something I would not have dared to dream when I was growing up. I still remember watching cowboy movies at the Mason Hall back home in Glen Allen. Uncle Perry Booz ran the projector. He was the magic man. So maybe Hollywood is in your DNA after all. And needless to say, I was totally mesmerized by the first television I saw. I never knew there were so many white people with so many different roles in life. At the time, both mediums were their domain. And to think I have lived long enough to see it change and to occasionally see your name in the credits after a show. As your life moves along its course, this is my chance to talk to you and your generation about what is still needed and what is possible between the races, in spite of our nation's legacy of slavery and legal segregation, shadows that still seem to hover close by. I want you to understand the mitigating lessons of race and place that shattered my life by telling you the impact upon me personally of my turn-of-the-century encounter with Miss Camille, an aging white southern plantation owner from the low country of South Carolina. Looking back at our unplanned meeting, I can only think now that maybe it was providential. Many stars aligned, and we found ourselves right in the middle of the alignment. I felt it was a meeting that was meant to be.
That is beautifully written. Do you feel in some ways this is the sequel to Once Upon a Time When We Were Colored? Because this is giving the rest of the story.
You know, you're the first to ask me that, Teresa, but you know, in Once Upon a Time, I concentrated so much on taking people inside Papa's house, inside my great aunt's
Which
house.
was idyllic. It was wonderful.
Which was, and it was real. It was very, very real. But I never really took people to what I call the lessons of race and place and how we had to live our lives outside of my grandfather's home. And in this book, I think I do. I think to some degree you're right. It's like this is the rest of the story.
And did you have to be an older writer to confront these truths? This has to be painful for you.
I think I had to get to a point of realizing, of having some sense of self, that I'm okay. You know, that I'm created in this way and I'm fine. But there were things that surrounded me that were difficult, and they still show up in my life. You know, I write the story here. You know, I serve on the board of the Eudora Welty Foundation, and I was at a meeting in New York. This was just 2 years ago. It was at a penthouse on Fifth Avenue, and I remembered getting to the penthouse and having to prove that I had the invitation. And this is just 2 years ago. And walking up the elevator, I said to myself, when I get to the hallway, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to use the bathroom. I'm going to take a deep breath. And I'm going to walk into this place. And I kept asking myself, would I be the only person of color there? But when I got to the 14th floor of this penthouse, no one told me that when you own a penthouse, the door does not open to a hallway. It opens to their vestibule. I had no chance to gather myself. And here I am surrounded by all of these people in this well-appointed penthouse. And all of the thoughts that I had when I was a kid, maybe I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because I didn't see anybody that looked like me, and I saw no one that knew me until I finally got the courage to move through the room among these people, and someone called out my name, a guy named Ward Emling from the Mississippi Film Commission. He said, "Clifton, hey, I'm glad to see you." You'll never know what it meant to have a voice that recognized you. And in that setting that looked so different, there I was recognized. And all of a sudden I realized that the lessons of race and place still show up. But also showing up is a voice that welcomes you and said, come into the 21st century. We're all here together.
And many of these themes carry over into another book that you're writing. Tell us about it.
You know, the book I'm writing, Somebody Thought I Mattered. I'm writing this book for educators. When I talk with educators around the country, I start out with that because I want the educator to understand first and foremost that in addition to their intellectual prowess and what they bring to the table as an educator, they also have this other side of them, this unique ability to be able to tell a student that no matter where you come from, that you really matter. And because you matter, I'm going to be willing to do everything I can to see you rise to the level of your potential, because you not only matter to me, but you will eventually matter to the rest of the world.
This makes such good sense. Why do we not do this automatically?
You know, I think we get so caught up in the day and our profession and what we do that sometimes it's just like water. You know, water is one of the best healing things we have. You got to drink water. But you know, we're always looking for something else. You go to the Mayo Clinic, you want them to give you out a prescription that is long and laborious and it's hard to read. You can't pronounce the words, and all of a sudden the doctor said, "Walk, you know, why don't you just walk an hour a day and drink water?" I don't want to hear that. No. You know, but again, I think maybe it falls into that category. Recognizing and valuing the people around you, that should be common sense. It should be commonplace. But sometimes that commonplaceness gets lost. And I think as a writer, I've been very fortunate to be able to turn the lights on, to help people to remember the things that are really significant and what really matters.
You've already told us about some of your family members who recognize those qualities in you. Who were some of the other somebodies who turned your life around?
Good question, because that's, I think of teachers, my first grade teacher. But I also think of my teacher in Greenville, Mississippi, Mrs. Jackson, Millicent Jackson, the science teacher. Even though I came from the country, when I walked in, she called me Taulbert and used my last name. You know, I didn't have a pet name or anything like that. And I was expected to do great things. Didn't matter that I came from Glen Allen, surrounded by cotton field. I'm now in the room with Bunsen burners, and I'm looking through microscopes, and I'm looking for amoebas, and she's letting me know, you can do this. You know, you can do this. But then again, it was also, I remember a man named Mr. Welch who lived in Tulsa. He was in the banking business. And when it was time for me to look for another job, he interviewed me. And even though he didn't have anything for me at his bank, he immediately called a guy named Eugene Swearingen, who at that time was his chairman of the board, I believe, of Bank of Oklahoma. And I became among the first of the African Americans to be in the bank in a very meaningful position. But it was because somebody else thought I mattered. They passed my name along. There are a lot of somebodies in all of our lives, but we have to think about that. But we also have to be challenged to become the somebodies in others' lives as well.
And you're doing that.
And that's what I really, truly
through your Building Community Institute, through your books. We just have a few seconds left here, Clifton. I've got to get your take on what many people refer to as our troubled times. Certainly there are uprisings in the country where it can have economic challenges. You see people from all over the world. Are you generally optimistic about our situation? Do you think that we're going to rise from all of this discord?
You know, I am optimistic that we have the unique ability to be better than we think we can. I'm just as optimistic as those few early Americans who decided that we want to divorce ourselves from Great Britain. But people tend to forget that the great percent of Americans were loyalists. They had no desire to do that, to become independent of their income, etc. But I think today that we have the ability to do great things together. And to that, I will always remain optimistic.
Thank you so much for being here, Cliff. It's great to see you. And thank all of you for joining us on Writing Out Loud.